Have you ever wondered what happens behind closed doors, when power, loyalty, and love collide? Tonight's story isn't just about choices, it's about consequences, about people who had everything and still risked it all. Before we begin, take a second to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard. And after watching, tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Now, let's begin.
The fluorescent lights hummed above my desk, that persistent buzz that had become the soundtrack to my 7th month of pregnancy. I shifted in my chair, trying to find a position that didn't make my swollen ankles throb or my lower back scream in protest. The accounting ledger in front of me blurred slightly as exhaustion tugged at my eyelids. It was December 30th, and the Montero Enterprises office was nearly empty, most employees having left early to prepare for New Year's celebrations. I pressed my palm against the tight swell of my belly, feeling a flutter of movement that made my heart clench with a complicated mixture of love and fear. 7 months pregnant, and I was still completely alone. No partner, no family, no safety net except the paycheck I earned reviewing financial statements for one of the most powerful men in the city. My phone buzzed with a text from Mariana, my only real friend. "Last chance, Cammy. Come to the party tonight. You can't spend New Year's Eve alone. Again." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. How could I explain that the thought of watching happy couples count down to midnight made me want to curl into a ball and never emerge? That seeing families together reminded me of everything I didn't have. "Still here, Camilla?" The deep voice made me jump, my hand flying to my chest. Cesar Montero stood in the doorway of my small office, his imposing frame filling the space in a way that always made the room feel smaller. At 42, he commanded attention without trying. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples, olive skin that spoke of his Brazilian heritage, and dark eyes that missed nothing. He wore his usual impeccable suit, charcoal gray that emphasized his broad shoulders, though he'd loosened his tie and unbuttoned his collar. "Mr. Montero." I straightened in my chair, trying to look professional despite my enormous belly and the exhaustion I knew showed on my face. I wanted to finish reconciling the December accounts before the year end. His gaze swept over me, and I saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Concern, maybe? But that was ridiculous. Cesar Montero was known throughout the city as a man without sentiment, someone who'd built his empire through cold calculation and ruthless efficiency. He paid me well, treated me with distant respect, but that was where our relationship ended. Employer and employee, nothing more. "It's 7 o'clock, he said, his Portuguese accent softening certain consonants in a way I'd always found oddly soothing. "And it's New Year's Eve. Even I'm leaving soon." "Just another hour," I promised, though we both knew I had nowhere to go. My apartment was a tiny studio in a neighborhood I could barely afford, furnished with second-hand furniture and decorated with nothing but the ultrasound photos taped to my refrigerator. The thought of returning there tonight, alone, while the rest of the city celebrated, made my chest tight. Cesar was silent for a long moment, and I felt his eyes on me. I'd worked for him for 2 years, ever since I'd graduated with my accounting degree, and somehow landed this position at his legitimate business operations. Everyone knew Cesar Montero had his hands in things beyond import-export and real estate, but I kept my head down, did my job, and tried not to think too hard about what the man who signed my paychecks might do in the shadows. "Camila." His voice was softer now, and I looked up to find him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "When is the baby due?" The question surprised me. In the 3 months since my pregnancy had become obvious, Cesar had never once mentioned it. I'd appreciated his discretion, even as part of me had wondered if he saw me as a liability now, a single mother whose personal problems might interfere with her work. "February 10th, I answered, my hand moving unconsciously to my belly again. "A girl." Something crossed his face, too quick for me to identify. "And the father?" My jaw tightened. This was dangerous territory, but I'd never been good at lying. "He's not involved." He made that clear when I told him I was pregnant. Idiota, Cesar muttered, and the flash of anger in his eyes startled me. What kind of man abandons his own child? The kind who never wanted to be a father, I said quietly, remembering Lucas's face when I'd told him. The way he'd backed away from me like I was contagious, like the pregnancy was something I'd done to him rather than something we'd created together. He said I could handle it on my own since I was the one who wanted to keep her. I didn't mention the money he'd shoved at me, enough for an abortion and a little extra, as if that would erase his responsibility. Or how he'd blocked my number the next day and moved out of the apartment we'd shared, leaving me scrambling to find somewhere I could afford alone. Cesar's expression darkened further. You have family? Your parents? I shook my head, fighting the familiar sting of tears. My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. I have an uncle in Portugal, but we're not close. That was putting it mildly. My uncle had made it clear at my parents' funeral that he had his own family to support and couldn't take on the burden of a grieving college student. I hadn't spoken to him since. Friends? A few. None close enough to impose on, though. None who could help me figure out how to be a mother when I had no model to follow, no safety net, no backup plan. I'm fine, Mr. Montero, really. I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing. Are you? He moved into the room, and I became acutely aware of how small the space was, how his presence seemed to fill every corner. He gestured to the files on my desk, the half-eaten sandwich that had been my lunch and dinner, the bottle of water I'd been rationing because I didn't want to make too many trips to the bathroom. You're working 12-hour days in your third trimester. You look exhausted. When was the last time you had a proper meal? The caring in his voice undid something in me. I'd been so careful, so determined to prove I could handle everything alone, that I hadn't let myself acknowledge how much I was struggling. I'm fine, I repeated, but my voice cracked on the words. Cesar pulled out the chair across from my desk and sat, his large frame folding into the small space with surprising grace. Camilla, look at me. I raised my eyes to his, and the gentleness in his expression made tears well up despite my best efforts. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer honestly. Can you do that? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Are you afraid? The simple question broke through every defense I'd built. Yes. I was terrified. Terrified of giving birth alone, of not knowing how to care for a newborn, of failing this tiny person who was depending on me for everything, terrified of the financial reality that my savings would barely cover 3 months of lost work, of the daycare costs that would eat most of my salary, of the endless string of what-ifs that kept me awake at night. Yes, I whispered. And then the tears came, hot and unstoppable. I'm so scared, Mr. Montero. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be a mother. I don't know if I can do this alone. He reached across the desk and took my hand, his large palm warm and solid around my smaller one. Then don't do it alone. I blinked at him through my tears. What? Let me help you, Camilla. His thumb stroked across my knuckles in a gesture that was surprisingly gentle for such a powerful man. Let me make sure you and your daughter are taken care of. I can't accept charity, I said automatically, even as part of me wanted desperately to say yes, to let someone else carry the burden for just a moment. I have my pride. This isn't charity. His grip on my hand tightened slightly. You're a valuable employee, and you've worked hard for me. Consider it an investment in retaining good talent, better maternity benefits, help with medical expenses, whatever you need. It was a kind offer, maybe even a generous one, but something in his eyes suggested this was about more than employee retention. Before I could analyze that thought further, he released my hand and stood. Go home, Camilla. Get some rest. We'll talk after the holiday about what you need. He left before I could respond, his footsteps echoing down the hall until the office fell silent again. I sat there for a long time, staring at the hand he'd held, feeling the phantom warmth of his touch. Cesar Montero had just offered to help me, and I had no idea what to make of it. I finished the reconciliation mechanically, my mind churning with questions I couldn't answer. Why would he care about my situation? What did he mean by whatever you need? And why had his touch made me feel safe for the first time in months? By the time I gathered my things and made my way to the parking lot, it was nearly 9 o'clock. The bus ride to my apartment took 40 minutes, and I spent the entire journey watching families and couples heading out to celebrate, feeling the familiar ache of isolation settle deeper into my chest. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Tiny, cold, and desperately lonely. I dropped my purse on the second-hand couch and moved to the kitchen, opening the nearly empty refrigerator. A carton of eggs, some wilted vegetables, half a loaf of bread. Nothing that felt like a proper New Year's Eve meal. I heated water for tea and sank onto the couch, pulling a blanket over my legs. Through the thin walls, I could hear my neighbors laughing, music playing, the sounds of celebration that only emphasized my solitude. I placed both hands on my belly, feeling my daughter shift and stretch inside me. "It's just you and me, pequeña," I whispered, using the Portuguese endearment my mother had called me. "But we're going to be okay. Somehow we're going to figure this out." The baby kicked in response, a firm jab against my ribs that made me smile despite the tears sliding down my cheeks. I loved her so much already, this tiny person I hadn't met yet. I would do anything for her, be anything she needed. But God, I was tired of being strong, of pretending I wasn't drowning, of facing every day alone. The tea grew cold in my hands as I sat there, listening to the city count down to midnight without me. At some point I must have dozed off, because I woke to the sound of fireworks exploding outside and my phone buzzing with New Year's messages from the few friends who remembered I existed. I was reaching for my phone when a knock sounded at my door. I froze, fear spiking through me. It was past midnight, and I lived in a neighborhood where unexpected visitors were rarely good news. The knock came again, firmer this time. "Camila, it's Cesar Montero. Please open the door." I stared at the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Cesar Montero was at my apartment, at midnight, on New Year's Eve. Nothing about this made sense. "Camila, por favor." His voice was gentler now, almost pleading. "I know it's late, but I need to talk to you." With shaking hands, I pushed myself off the couch, my movements awkward with the weight of my belly. I checked the peephole and saw him standing there, still in his suit, but looking somehow different. Less controlled. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and he held 2 large bags that smelled unmistakably of food. I unlocked the door and pulled it open, taking in the sight of one of the most powerful men in the city standing in my shabby apartment building hallway, looking almost uncertain. "Mr. Montero, what are you doing here? How did you even know where I live?" "Your employee file," he said, then seemed to realize how that sounded. "I know. I shouldn't have come unannounced. But I couldn't stop thinking about you spending New Year's alone, and He stopped, his jaw tightening. "May I come in?" I stepped back, letting him enter my tiny studio. I watched his eyes take in the space, the second-hand furniture, the peeling paint on the walls, the single small window that looked out on an alley. The contrast between this and his world must have been stark. Shame heated my cheeks. "I know it's not much," I started, but he cut me off. "It's clean and safe, and you've made it home." He set the bags on my small kitchen counter, and the smell of food made my stomach growl audibly. "But it's too small for you and a baby. And these stairs..." He gestured toward the 3 flights I had to climb daily. In your condition, that's dangerous. I manage, I said, defensive. I've been managing just fine. Have you? He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his dark eyes made my breath catch. Have you been managing, Camilla? Or have you been surviving? The distinction hit too close to home. I sank back onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Why are you here? Mr. Montero? Cesar, he corrected, moving to sit in the single armchair across from me. I think we're past formalities. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for a moment he just looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. I'm here because I've been watching you struggle for months, and I can't do it anymore. I can't stand by and watch you work yourself to exhaustion, watch you pretend everything's fine when it clearly isn't. You're my boss, I said quietly. My personal life isn't your concern. That's where you're wrong. His voice was firm, but not unkind. You became my concern the moment you started working for me. And what kind of man would I be if I let a woman in my employ face this alone when I have the means to help? I studied his face, trying to understand what was happening. This is about employee welfare, about keeping me productive. Something flickered in his eyes. Is that what you think? That this is just business? What else would it be? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Cesar was silent for a long moment, his gaze never leaving mine. Outside, more fireworks exploded, their colorful bursts visible through my small window. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and careful. For 2 years, I've watched you work. I've seen your dedication, your intelligence, the way you handle every task with precision and care. I've noticed how you never complain, never make excuses, never ask for special treatment even when you deserve it. He paused, running a hand through his hair in that gesture I'd noticed earlier. And for 2 years, I've been professional, distant, because you were young, and you worked for me, and I had no right to see you as anything more than a valuable employee. His eyes met mine again, and I saw something in them that made my pulse quicken. But then you came to work one day with this glow about you, and I knew before you told anyone that you were pregnant. I opened my mouth, but he held up a hand. Let me finish, please. I nodded, my heart racing. I watched you come in day after day, and slowly I realized the father wasn't in the picture. I saw you eating lunch alone at your desk, working late, never mentioning plans or family or anyone to help you. And I found myself thinking about you at odd hours, wondering if you'd eaten enough, if you were sleeping, if you were afraid. Mr. Montero, Cesar. His voice was almost sharp, and I'm not finished. He stood abruptly, pacing my small living space like a caged animal. Do you know what I did tonight? I went to a party at my cousin's house. 50 people, all celebrating, all with their families and partners. And all I could think about was you, alone in this apartment, probably crying because you're too proud to let anyone see how scared you are. He turned to face me, and the raw emotion in his expression stole my breath. So, I left. I made up an excuse and left. And I stopped at the only restaurant I could find open and bought enough food for both of us because I couldn't stand the thought of you spending this night alone. Because somewhere in the last few months you stopped being just an employee to me, Camilla. The room seemed to have shrunk, the air between us charged with something I didn't dare name. What are you saying? He moved closer, kneeling in front of the couch so we were at eye level. I'm saying that I care about you. More than I should. More than is probably appropriate given our professional relationship. I'm saying that when you walked into work with that pregnancy test confirmation and I saw the fear on your face, something in me shifted. I'm saying that I've spent 3 months watching you carry that baby alone, and it's been killing me not to do something about it. You don't even know me, I whispered, even as my heart threatened to pound out of my chest. Not really. Then let me know you. His hand reached out, hovering near my face before gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Let me be there for you and for her. Not as your boss, but as... He stopped, searching for words. As someone who cares deeply about your well-being. I can't be someone's charity case, I said, tears threatening again. I can't be the poor pregnant girl you feel sorry for. Charity? His voice held an edge now. Camilla, look at me. I raised my eyes to his. I don't feel sorry for you. I admire you. Your strength, your determination, the way you've faced this impossible situation with grace and courage. I feel a lot of things when I look at you, but pity isn't one of them. Then what? I had to know. What do you feel? His hand moved to cup my face, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. I feel protective. I feel drawn to you in a way I haven't felt about anyone in years. I feel like I want to give you everything you deserve. Safety, security, support. I feel like I want to be there when your daughter is born, to help you through the sleepless nights. To watch her grow up knowing she's wanted and loved. You don't even know her, I protested weakly. No, he agreed. But I know her mother, and I know that any child raised by you will be extraordinary. His other hand moved to rest gently on my belly, and I felt my daughter respond with a firm kick. Cesar's eyes widened, a smile breaking across his face that transformed him from intimidating boss to something softer, more human. She's strong, like her mother. Cesar. His name felt strange on my tongue, intimate. This is crazy. We barely know each other outside of work. You can't just decide you want to be part of this. Can I? He didn't move his hand from my belly, and I found I didn't want him to. Camilla, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow or to move in with me tonight. I'm asking you to let me help, to let me be present, to give us a chance to see what this could be. What could be? My voice was barely a whisper. This connection between us. His eyes held mine. Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me that when I walked into your office today, you didn't feel something shift. Tell me that right now, with my hand on your belly and my eyes on yours. You don't feel this pull between us. I couldn't tell him that because it would be a lie. I did feel something. Something that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. I'm pregnant with another man's child, I said, trying to be practical even as my heart raced. I'm broke. I'm scared. I'm a mess. Why would you want any part of this? Because life is messy, Camilla. And because I've spent 42 years building an empire, accumulating power and wealth, and none of it has made me feel the way I felt tonight when I realized you were spending New Year's alone. His hand slid from my belly to take my hand in his. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for. And I've never been afraid of a fight. Your family, I started, thinking of the extensive Montero clan I'd heard about but never met. What will they think? They'll think I've finally found someone who makes me happy. His smile was confident. And they'll love you, Camilla. How could they not? I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe that this powerful, handsome man actually cared about me, that I wasn't alone anymore, that my daughter would have someone besides me to rely on. But years of disappointment had taught me to be cautious. I need time, I said finally, to think about this, to understand what you're really offering. Time, he agreed, though I saw disappointment flash across his face. But Camilla, while you're thinking, let me do one thing. He stood and moved to the kitchen, unpacking the bags he'd brought. The smell of food filled my tiny apartment. Roasted chicken, rice, vegetables, fresh bread, and even a small cake decorated with Feliz Ano Novo. "Let me feed you," he said simply. "Let me make sure you have a proper New Year's meal. No commitments, no obligations. Just two people sharing food and conversation on the first night of a new year. Can you give me that?" Looking at the feast he'd laid out, at the care he'd taken to bring this to me, at the hope in his dark eyes, I felt something in my chest crack open. "Yes," I whispered. "I can give you that." His smile was brilliant, transforming his face completely. "Then come, Mina querida. Let's welcome the new year together." As I joined him at my small kitchen table, and he served me plate after plate of delicious food, asking me about my pregnancy and my plans and my dreams for my daughter, I felt the loneliness that had been my constant companion begin to recede. Maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. The days following New Year's became a blur of Cesar's constant presence in my life. He showed up at my apartment every morning with breakfast, drove me to work in his black Mercedes, and insisted on accompanying me to every doctor's appointment. It was overwhelming and comforting in equal measure, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were living in a bubble that would eventually burst. That bubble burst on a rainy Saturday afternoon when Cesar arrived at my door with an announcement that made my stomach drop. "My mother wants to meet you." I stared at him, my hand instinctively going to my belly. "Your mother? Cesar? I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" He stepped into my apartment, shaking rain from his dark hair. Even in casual clothes, a black sweater and jeans, he radiated that same commanding presence. "You're important to me. She should meet you." "I'm your pregnant accountant," I said bluntly. "What exactly are you planning to tell her about us?" "The truth." His voice was firm. "That I care about you deeply and intend to be present for you and your daughter." "Cesar, be realistic." I moved to the kitchen, needing something to do with my hands. "Your family is one of the most prominent Brazilian families in the city. Your mother is going to expect you to be with someone from your world, someone with the right background, the right connections, not a broke, pregnant nobody." He was across the room in 3 strides, his hands on my shoulders, turning me to face him. "Don't ever call yourself a nobody, Camilla. You're brilliant, strong, and more real than anyone I've ever met in my so-called world." "That's sweet, but..." "Tomorrow, lunch at my mother's house." His tone left no room for argument. "The whole family will be there. It's time they met the woman who's changed my life." My heart hammered with anxiety. What if they hate me? Something softened in his expression. "They won't. But Camilla, I need you to understand something." He led me to the couch, sitting beside me and taking my hands in his. "My family is traditional. They have expectations. My mother especially has been trying to set me up with suitable women for years. Women who aren't 7 months pregnant with someone else's baby," I said quietly. "Women who bore me to tears," he corrected. "Women who want my money and my name but have no interest in who I really am." His thumb stroked across my knuckles. "You're different. You've never asked me for anything. You've never tried to use me. You see me, Camilla. The real me, not just the empire I've built." The next day, I stood in front of my closet in tears. Nothing fit properly anymore, and everything I owned looked cheap and worn. How was I supposed to meet Cesar's family looking like this? A knock at my door interrupted my panic. I opened it to find a woman I didn't recognize holding several garment bags. "Miss Suarez? Mr. Montero sent me. I'm Clara, a personal stylist. He thought you might need some help preparing for today." An hour later, I stared at myself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. The emerald green dress was elegant and maternity appropriate, emphasizing my curves while accommodating my belly. Clara had done my hair and makeup with expert precision. I looked like I belonged in Caesar's world, even though I knew it was all an illusion. The Montero family estate was in an exclusive neighborhood I'd only ever driven through, never imagining I'd actually enter one of these palatial homes. Cesar held my hand as we walked up to the massive front door, and I felt his tension matching my own. "Whatever happens," he murmured, "I'm with you. Remember that." The door opened before we could knock, revealing a small, elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair and Cesar's intense eyes. Maria Montero looked me up and down with an expression I couldn't read, and I felt myself being measured and found wanting. "Mama," Cesar said, kissing both her cheeks. "This is Camila Suarez. Camila, my mother, Maria." "Mrs. Montero," I said, extending my hand. "It's an honor to meet you." She took my hand briefly, her touch cool and impersonal. "Please come in. The family is eager to meet you." There was something in her tone that made eager sound more like curious about the spectacle. The living room was filled with people. Cesar's 3 sisters with their husbands and children, his 2 brothers with their wives, various cousins and aunts and uncles. The conversation died the moment we entered, and I felt at least 20 pairs of eyes fixate on my pregnant belly. "Everyone," Cesar said, his hand firm on my lower back. "This is Camila." The silence stretched uncomfortably until one of his sisters, a beautiful woman with long dark hair, stood and approached us. "I'm Lucia," she said warmly, taking my hands. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Cesar has been so secretive about his personal life lately." "Secretive because he knows what the family would say," a male voice interjected. One of Cesar's brothers stepped forward, his expression less welcoming. "About him bringing home a pregnant woman who works for him. It's inappropriate, Cesar." "What are people going to think?" "Roberto," Cesar's voice held a warning. "No, let me speak." Roberto turned to me, his gaze cold. "Miss Suarez, I don't know what your intentions are with my brother, but you should understand that the Montero name means something in this city. We have a reputation to maintain." "Roberto," Lucia gasped. "That's incredibly rude." "It's honest," he countered. "Someone needs to say it. This situation looks like exactly what it is. A woman in trouble latching onto a wealthy man who's fool enough to be swayed by a pretty face and a sad story." My face burned with humiliation. I felt Cesar tense beside me, his hand tightening on my waist. "Careful, brother. Very careful." "Or what?" Roberto challenged. "You'll threaten me for speaking the truth?" "We all know what this looks like. She's pregnant with another man's child. She works for you. And suddenly you're playing hero. It's embarrassing." "That's enough." Maria's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood, her petite frame somehow commanding the entire room. Roberto apologized to our guest immediately. "Mama, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Then everyone can keep their thoughts to themselves." Maria moved toward us, and I braced myself for more criticism. Instead, she looked directly at me, her dark eyes searching my face. "Miss Suarez, my son is not an impulsive man. If he brought you here, he has his reasons. I would like to hear them from you." My mouth went dry. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Montero. I don't understand." "Why are you here?" she asked bluntly. "What do you want from my son?" I felt Cesar start to intervene, but I placed my hand on his arm, stopping him. If I was going to be part of his life, I needed to be able to speak for myself. "Mrs. Montero, I don't want anything from Cesar except his friendship. I didn't ask him to involve himself in my situation. In fact, I've tried repeatedly to maintain professional boundaries, but he's insisted on being present. And honestly," my voice cracked slightly, "I'm alone in this world. No family, no support system." When he offered to help, I was terrified to accept because I thought exactly what your son Roberto thinks, that people would see me as someone taking advantage. And yet you're here, Maria observed. Because Cesar asked me to come, I said simply. Because he wanted his family to meet me, though I still don't fully understand why. I'm 7 months pregnant with another man's child. I have nothing to offer him except gratitude for his kindness. If that's not enough for your family, I understand completely. The room was silent. Then, unexpectedly, Cesar's youngest sister Sofia stood up, tears in her eyes. Do you know what it's like? She asked quietly. To be pregnant and alone? I do. When I was 22, I found myself in the same situation. The father left and I was terrified. This family, she gestured around the room. They surrounded me. They supported me. They helped me raise my daughter even though some people in our community judged us. She moved closer to me. That's what family does. We take care of our own, even when the situation isn't perfect or traditional. If my brother sees something worth protecting in you, then that's enough for me. She took my hand. Welcome, Camila. One by one, the other sisters stood, then Lucia's husband, then some of the cousins. But Roberto remained seated, his expression sour, and I noticed several others exchanging uncertain glances. This is absurd, Roberto said. She's not family. She's a stranger who's manipulated Cesar into feeling responsible for a situation that has nothing to do with him. I haven't manipulated anyone, I said, my voice stronger now. And you're right, I'm not family. I should go. I turned to Cesar. Thank you for trying. But this was a mistake. I don't belong here. I moved toward the door, tears blurring my vision, when a sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I gasped, my hand flying to my belly, and suddenly I was doubled over, unable to breathe through the intensity of it. Camila! Cesar was at my side instantly, his arm around me. What's wrong? It hurts, I managed. Something's wrong. The baby... Chaos erupted. Maria was shouting orders. Someone was calling an ambulance, and Cesar had scooped me into his arms, carrying me toward the door. Through the pain and fear, I heard him repeating, Hold on, Mina querida. Just hold on. I've got you. As he carried me to his car, not waiting for the ambulance, I caught a glimpse of his family's faces. Shock, concern, and on Roberto's face, something that might have been shame. But I couldn't focus on any of that. All I could think about was my daughter, and the terrifying possibility that I might lose her. Stay with me, Camila, Cesar commanded, as he drove with one hand, the other gripping mine. Stay with me and stay awake. Talk to me. Tell me about your daughter. What are you going to name her? Celeste, I whispered through the pain. After my mother. Her middle name was... Another contraction ripped through me and I cried out. We're almost there, he promised, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. Just hold on a little longer. As we screeched into the emergency entrance of the hospital, Cesar was out of the car and lifting me before the engine had fully stopped. I need help, he shouted. She's 7 months pregnant and in severe pain. Medical staff swarmed us, placing me on a gurney, asking questions I could barely answer through the pain. I felt Cesar's hand being ripped from mine as they wheeled me toward the examination rooms. Sir, you'll have to wait here, a nurse said firmly. Like hell I will. Cesar's voice was cold and commanding. That's my... He stopped, then said with absolute certainty, That's my family. I'm not leaving her. Something about the authority in his voice made the nurse step aside. Cesar gripped my hand again as they rushed me down the corridor, and I held on like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to consciousness. Is the baby going to be okay? I managed to ask the doctor who was examining me. We're going to do everything we can, she said. which wasn't the reassurance I desperately needed. It looks like you're experiencing preterm labor contractions. We need to stop them if possible. When was your last ultrasound? 2 weeks ago. Everything was fine. Sometimes stress can trigger these episodes, the doctor said, and I felt guilt wash over me. The confrontation with Cesar's family, the emotional upheaval. Had I done this to my baby? As if reading my thoughts, Cesar leaned close. This isn't your fault, Camilla. Do you hear me? Whatever happens, this isn't your fault. But as they hooked me up to monitors and started an IV, as I lay there listening to my daughter's heartbeat on the monitor, too fast, the nurse's expression said it was too fast, I couldn't help but wonder if getting involved with Cesar had been the biggest mistake of my life. His world was complicated and painful, and now my daughter was paying the price. I'm sorry, I whispered to my belly. I'm so sorry, Pequeña. Cesar's hand tightened on mine. She's going to be fine. You're both going to be fine. I won't accept any other outcome. I wanted to believe him. But as another contraction hit and the monitors started beeping urgently, I realized that for the first time in his life, Cesar Montero might be facing something he couldn't control with sheer will and determination. And that terrified me more than anything. The medication they gave me worked, eventually. After 3 terrifying hours where the doctors monitored my contractions and my daughter's heart rate, things finally stabilized. The doctor, Dr. Miranda, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, sat on the edge of my hospital bed and delivered the verdict. You're going on strict bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy, she said firmly. No work, minimal stress, and someone needs to monitor you constantly. Another episode like this could result in premature delivery, and at 30 weeks, that's a risk we want to avoid if possible. I can't afford to stop working, I said, my voice hoarse from crying. I need the income. I need the health insurance. You need to keep that baby inside you for at least another month, preferably 6 weeks, Dr. Miranda interrupted. Miss Suarez, I understand you're in a difficult situation, but your health and your daughter's health have to come first. I looked at Cesar, who hadn't left my side for a single moment. His expensive sweater was wrinkled, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly, and exhaustion shadowed his eyes. But his grip on my hand remained steady, unwavering. She'll have everything she needs, he said quietly. Money, insurance, care, whatever it takes. Cesar, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm insisting. His dark eyes held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. No more arguments? Camila, you're going to let me take care of you, and that's final. A knock at the door interrupted us. Maria Montero entered, followed by Sofia, Lucia, and surprisingly, Roberto. They all looked shaken, worried, guilty. How is she? Maria asked, directing the question to Cesar, but her eyes on me. And the baby? Stable, Cesar answered. But she needs complete bed rest for the next 6 to 10 weeks. Maria nodded, then moved closer to the bed. Up close, I could see that she'd been crying, her makeup slightly smudged. Miss Suarez, Camilla, I owe you an apology. When you collapsed in my home, I realized how poorly we had treated you. You were our guest, you came at my son's invitation, and we allowed you to be attacked under our roof. Mrs. Montero, you don't need to... I do, she said firmly. And please, call me Maria. She glanced at Cesar, something passing between them that I couldn't interpret. My son is not a man who shows his heart easily. If he cares for you enough to bring you to meet us, then I should have trusted his judgment instead of letting old prejudices cloud mine. I'm the one who should apologize, Roberto said, stepping forward. He looked genuinely remorseful. I was cruel and judgmental. I let my concern for my brother's reputation override basic human decency. When you collapsed, when I saw the terror on Cesar's face. He stopped, his jaw tightening. I realized I could have caused something terrible. I'm sorry, Camilla, truly. I didn't know what to say. These powerful, wealthy people were apologizing to me, the broke pregnant girl who'd crashed their family gathering. Thank you, I managed finally. I appreciate that. More than apologies, we'd like to help, Sophia said, her gentle voice filling the awkward silence. If you need bed rest, you can't stay alone in your apartment. You should stay with one of us. I have a guest room and I work from home so I could check on you. She'll stay with me, Cesar interrupted, at my home, where I can make sure she has everything she needs. The room fell silent. Maria's eyebrows rose. Cesar, that's not appropriate. An unmarried woman living in your home. I have a 4-bedroom house, he said. She'll have her own room, her own space. But I'm not negotiating on this, Mama. Camilla needs care and monitoring, and I'm going to make sure she gets it. People will talk, Maria warned. Let them. Cesar's voice was steel. I don't care what people think. I care about making sure Camilla and her daughter survive the next few weeks safely. I opened my mouth to protest, to say this was too much, too fast, too inappropriate. But the truth was, I had no other options. I couldn't afford private nursing care, couldn't manage bed rest alone in my apartment with 3 flights of stairs to navigate. And despite everything, I trusted Cesar. He'd proven over and over in the past weeks that his care for me was genuine. Okay, I whispered. Thank you. The relief on his face was palpable. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that made my heart flutter despite the circumstances. You won't regret this, minha querida. I promise. Dr. Miranda discharged me the next morning with strict instructions and a prescription for medication to prevent premature labor. Cesar had already arranged everything, a wheelchair for the hospital exit, his car waiting at the curb, and when we arrived at his house in the upscale neighborhood of Jardim Europa, I found a hospital bed had been set up in one of the spacious guest rooms. This is too much, I protested as he helped me into the room. The space was 3 times the size of my entire apartment, decorated in soothing blues and creams, with large windows overlooking a private garden. It's not enough, he countered, helping me settle onto the bed. But it's a start. Over the next few days, I discovered what Cesar meant by taking care of me. A private nurse named Helena came twice daily to check my vitals and the baby's heartbeat. Meals appeared at regular intervals, prepared by Rosa, Cesar's housekeeper, who had strict instructions about nutrition for pregnant women. Cesar worked from home, setting up his laptop in the chair beside my bed, conducting business calls in Portuguese and English, while keeping one eye constantly on me. You don't have to babysit me, I told him on the 3rd day. I'm fine. Go to your office. I am in my office, he said, gesturing to his laptop. The location has simply changed. Cesar, this isn't sustainable. You can't put your entire life on hold for me. He closed his laptop and gave me his full attention. Camila, do you know what I did last year? I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I attended meaningless social events, made business deals that increased my wealth but gave me no satisfaction, and came home to an empty house every night. I had everything a man could want and felt absolutely nothing. He moved to sit on the edge of my bed, taking my hand in his. These past 3 days, working from this room, making sure you're eating properly, listening to Helena confirm that the baby's heartbeat is strong, this has given me more purpose than anything I've done in years. So no, I'm not putting my life on hold. I'm finally starting to live it. His words made my throat tight with emotion. I don't understand you. Why would you do all this for someone you barely know? Because I know you better than you think, he said softly. I know you take your coffee with too much cream because straight black reminds you of the cheap instant coffee you survived on in college. I know you hum while you work, always the same melody. Your mother used to sing it to you. I know you're left-handed, but learned to use a mouse right-handed because that's how the computers were set up in your first job. I know you're terrified of storms because you were caught in one the night your parents died. I stared at him, shocked. How do you know all that? Because I've been paying attention for 2 years, Camilla. Every detail, every habit, every small thing that makes you who you are. I didn't plan to fall for you. I tried not to. But somewhere between watching you solve an accounting discrepancy that 3 other people had missed and seeing you smile at Rosa's daughter when she delivered your lunch, I realized you were everything I'd been missing. You're in love with me, I whispered, the realization hitting like a wave. Desperately, he admitted. Completely. I'm in love with you, Camila Suarez, and I'm in love with the daughter you're carrying, even though she's not biologically mine. I want to be there when she's born. I want to teach her to ride a bike and help her with her homework and walk her down the aisle someday. I want all of it. With you. With her. With the family we could build together. Tears spilled down my cheeks. This is crazy. We've never even been on a date. This isn't how love works. Isn't it? His thumb brushed away my tears. My grandparents met at a bus stop. They talked for 20 minutes, and my grandfather told my grandmother he was going to marry her. She thought he was insane. They were married 52 years, until the day she died. Sometimes you just know, Camila. And I know. Before I could respond, my phone rang. I grabbed it from the nightstand, grateful for the interruption, then froze when I saw the name on the screen. Lucas. Cesar noticed my expression. Who is it? The baby's father, I said quietly. He's calling. After 7 months of silence, Cesar's voice went cold. What could he possibly want? My hand trembled as I answered. Hello? Camilla. Lucas's voice was exactly as I remembered. Smooth, confident, utterly self-centered. I heard you had some kind of medical emergency. Are you okay? How did you hear that? I asked, suspicion making my voice sharp. I still have friends in the city. Word gets around. He paused. Look, I've been thinking. About the baby. About my responsibilities. I was wrong to walk away. I want to be involved. My heart sank. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Lucas, you made your position very clear. You wanted nothing to do with her. I was scared, he said, and I could hear the manipulation in his tone, the same manipulation that had worked on me for 2 years. I panicked, but I've had time to think, and I realize I made a mistake. She's my daughter, Camila. I have rights. Rights? My voice rose. You have rights? You abandoned me when I needed you most. You gave me money for an abortion and blocked my number. You have no rights. Cesar's hand tightened on mine, his expression thunderous. The law would disagree, Lucas said, his voice turning harder. I'm her biological father. If I want custody, visitation, a say in her life, I'm entitled to it. And from what I hear, you're shacked up with some rich guy now. That doesn't look good, Camilla. A single mother living with a man she's not married to. Judges tend to frown on that kind of instability. Are you threatening me? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm stating facts. Look, I don't want to make this ugly. I'm willing to be reasonable. We can work out an arrangement, shared custody maybe. I'll even help with expenses, but I want to be in my daughter's life. And if you try to keep me out, I'll take you to court. The call ended, leaving me staring at the phone in shock. 7 months of silence, and now Lucas wanted back in? It didn't make sense. Unless... He heard you're with me, Cesar said quietly, voicing my thoughts. He heard that Cesar Montero is involved with you, and suddenly he's interested again. But why? I looked at him, confused and frightened. What would he gain? Cesar's expression was grim. Money. A settlement to go away. Or maybe leverage. Information about me he could sell to my competitors or enemies. Or perhaps just the satisfaction of making trouble for someone he perceives as having taken what's his. I was never his, I said firmly, and neither is my daughter. Our daughter, Cesar corrected gently. If you'll let her be. Legally, I can't do anything until she's born and you give me permission. But Camila, if you'll allow it, I want to adopt her. I want to be her father in every way that matters. Cesar, think about it, he interrupted. You don't have to answer now. But know this. No matter what Lucas tries, no matter what threats he makes, I won't let him hurt you or take your daughter. I have resources he can't imagine, and I will use every single one of them to protect you both. The intensity in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt safe for the first time since Lucas's call. Why? I whispered. Why would you fight for us like this? Because you're mine, he said simply. Both of you, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. That night, as I lay in the comfortable bed in Cesar's guest room, I thought about everything that had happened. My daughter's father suddenly reappearing, Cesar's declaration of love, the family that had gone from hostile to protective in the space of one medical emergency. My life had become unrecognizable, transformed from isolated struggle to complicated drama. But as I placed my hand on my belly and felt Celeste respond with a firm kick, I realized something important. For the first time since I'd learned I was pregnant, I didn't feel alone. I had Cesar's protection, his family's support, and the promise that whatever came next, I wouldn't face it by myself. The question was whether I was brave enough to accept it all. The help, the love, the complicated entanglement with a man whose world I barely understood. And whether I could trust that this wasn't temporary, that Cesar wouldn't wake up one day and realize he'd taken on too much, that the reality of a newborn and a partner with nothing to offer would be too much burden. I wanted to believe. God, how I wanted to believe. But years of disappointment had taught me that wanting something didn't make it real. Please be different, I whispered to the darkness, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to Cesar, to fate, or to myself. Please let this be real. Lucas showed up at Cesar's house 4 days later. I was in the garden. Helena had insisted that short, supervised walks were good for circulation. When Rosa came hurrying out, her expression troubled. Miss Camilla, there's a man at the gate. He says he's the baby's father and demands to see you. My blood went cold. Where's Cesar? At a meeting downtown. He should be back within the hour. Rosa wrung her hands nervously. The man is very insistent. He's threatening to call the police, saying Mr. Montero is holding you against your will. That's ridiculous, I said, but panic fluttered in my chest. Lucas was here, at Cesar's home, causing a scene. Let me talk to him through the intercom. Rosa led me inside to the security panel. On the screen, I could see Lucas standing at the gate, looking as handsome and polished as ever in an expensive suit I knew he couldn't actually afford. His blonde hair was perfectly styled, his smile calculated for the security camera. I pressed the intercom button. What do you want, Lucas? Camilla. His voice was warm, concerned, the same tone he'd used when we first met. Thank God. I was worried when you didn't return my calls. Can we talk, please? I drove all the way here. We have nothing to talk about. You made your choice 7 months ago. I made a mistake, he said, and I could see him arranging his features into an expression of remorse. A terrible mistake that I regret every day. Please, just give me 10 minutes. Let me explain. Let me see you. Make sure you're really okay. I'm not letting you in. Then come out here. Just for a few minutes. We can talk through the gate if you're worried. His voice took on an edge. Or are you a prisoner in there, Camilla? Does your sugar daddy not let you leave? He's not... I stopped, realizing Lucas was trying to provoke me. I'm not coming out. Go away, Lucas. Fine. His expression hardened. Then I'll see you in court. My lawyer is already drawing up custody papers. I hope you're prepared for a long, ugly legal battle, because I'm not going away. That's my daughter you're carrying, and I have rights. The screen went dark as he walked away, but I stood there trembling. My hand pressed to my belly protectively. Celeste kicked, as if sensing my distress. Miss Camilla, you should sit down, Rosa said gently, guiding me back to the living room. Mr. Cesar will know what to do. Cesar arrived home 20 minutes later, and the moment he saw my face, his expression darkened. What happened? I told him everything. His jaw tightened with each word, a muscle ticking dangerously. When I finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking rapid Portuguese too fast for me to follow. Then he turned to me, his voice controlled but with an underlying fury I'd never heard before. This ends now, he said. Lucas is playing games, and I don't play games, Camilla. I eliminate problems. What does that mean? I asked, suddenly afraid of what Cesar might do. It means I'm going to have a conversation with him, man to man. And after that conversation, he'll understand that pursuing you and Celeste is the worst mistake he could make. Cesar, you can't... I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. Couldn't threaten him, couldn't hurt him. I knew Cesar Montero's reputation, knew that his business empire included things that existed in shadows. Please don't do anything illegal. His expression softened slightly as he knelt before me, taking my hands. I would never do anything that could take me away from you or put you at risk. But Lucas needs to understand consequences, and I'm very good at making people understand consequences. I don't want you to become a monster because of me. Mina querida. He cupped my face gently. I've been called a monster by many people. But with you, I try to be just a man. A man who loves you and will protect you with everything he has. Trust me to handle this my way. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Rosa answered it, and voices carried from the foyer. One Rosa's nervous tones, and another that made my stomach drop. Maria Montero. Where is my son? Cesar's mother demanded, sweeping into the living room like a small hurricane. She was impeccably dressed as always, but her expression was thunderous. Cesar, we need to talk. Now. Mama, this isn't a good time. I don't care. Maria's gaze moved to me, not unkindly, but with concern. Camilla, dear, would you give us a moment? Anything you need to say to me can be said in front of Camilla, Cesar said firmly. Maria sighed, sitting down in one of the elegant armchairs. Very well. I've just come from lunch with Teresa Alvarez. Do you know what she told me? That her nephew Lucas is planning to sue for custody of Camilla's baby. That he's painting you, Cesar, as a dangerous influence. That he's collecting evidence to present to a judge about your business activities. My heart sank. He's trying to use Cesar against me. Exactly. Maria looked at her son. Cesar, you need to think about this carefully. If Lucas takes this to court, if he brings lawyers who start digging into your business, into your connections. Let them dig, Cesar said coldly. My legitimate businesses are spotless, and my other activities are so well insulated that no family court judge will find anything actionable. But the perception, the rumors, Maria pressed. The judge will hear that you're involved with organized crime, even if they can't prove it. They'll question whether Camilla's baby should be in a home connected to that world. They might even grant Lucas custody just to keep the child away from your influence. The words hit me like a physical blow. He could take her? I looked at Cesar, terror clawing at my throat. They could give my baby to a man who abandoned us just because he's making me look bad for being with you? Over my dead body, Cesar said, his voice like steel. That's not how the law works, son. Maria's voice was gentle but firm. You can't intimidate a judge the way you intimidate business rivals. You can't make this problem disappear with money or threats. This requires a different approach. What approach? I asked desperately. Maria looked between us, something calculating in her expression. Marriage. What? Cesar and I said simultaneously. If you're married, if Camilla is Mrs. Montero, Lucas's case falls apart. He can't argue about unstable living arrangements or inappropriate relationships. A married couple is the ideal family structure in the court's eyes, especially if Cesar begins adoption proceedings immediately after the birth. Maman, we've discussed this, Cesar started. No, you've been stubborn about it, Maria interrupted. Cesar, you've already committed to this woman and her child in every way except legally. You've brought her into your home, declared your intentions to the family, and made yourself a target because of your association with her. Why not make it official? Because Camilla deserves better than a marriage of convenience born from legal necessity, Cesar said, his voice tight. She deserves to be courted properly, to have time to know me, to choose me freely without pressure or coercion. And what she'll get instead is Lucas taking her daughter, Maria said bluntly. Cesar, I understand your romantic notions, but sometimes practicality has to win. You love her, that's obvious. And I think... She looked at me. I think she loves you too, even if she hasn't admitted it yet. So why not marry now and court her afterward? You'll have a lifetime to romance your wife. My head was spinning. Marriage to Cesar. The thought terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. I can't ask him to marry me just to solve my legal problems. That's not fair to him. You're not asking, Cesar said quietly. I'm offering. He moved to kneel before me again, taking both my hands in his. Camilla, this isn't how I wanted to do this. I had plans, romantic plans involving courting you properly, giving you time to feel secure in my devotion. But if marrying me now protects you and Celeste from Lucas, then that's what we'll do. Cesar, marriage is the legal formalization of what already exists between us, he interrupted. Camilla, I already think of you as my wife. I already think of Celeste as my daughter. Making it official changes nothing except giving us legal protection and giving you my name. But you'd be tied to me, I protested. To a woman with nothing to offer you. To a child that isn't yours. She is mine. His voice was fierce. In every way that matters, she's mine. I'll be in the delivery room when she's born. I'll walk the floor with her when she cries. I'll teach her to read and to ride a bike and to stand up for herself. I'll be her father, Camilla, if you'll let me. Legal documents are just paperwork confirming what my heart already knows. Tears streamed down my face. What if you regret it? What if one day you wake up and realize you've chained yourself to someone who can't give you what you deserve? What I deserve. He smiled, brushing away my tears. Mina querida, I deserve nothing. I've built my empire on ruthlessness and calculation. I've done things I'm not proud of. But somehow, miraculously, I've been given you. A woman who sees past my power and my money to the man underneath. A woman who makes me want to be better. That's more than I ever hoped for. This is insane, I whispered. We've known each other 3 weeks like this. I've known you 2 years, he corrected. I've loved you for months, even when I tried not to. And I'll love you for the rest of my life. So marry me, Camila Suarez. Not because it's practical or convenient, but because I love you desperately and want to spend every day proving it. I looked at Maria, who was watching us with something that might have been approval. What about your family? What will they think? They'll think Cesar has finally found someone worthy of him, Maria said firmly. And they'll welcome you as a daughter. I promise you that, Camila. Whatever happened at our first meeting, it's forgotten. If you marry my son, you'll have the full support and protection of the Montero family. The weight of the decision pressed on me. Marriage to Cesar meant safety, security, a father for my daughter. But it also meant stepping fully into his world, accepting everything that came with being Mrs. Montero. Could I do that? Could I be what he needed? As if sensing my thoughts, Cesar squeezed my hands. You don't have to be anything except yourself, Camila. That's all I've ever wanted. I thought about Lucas's threats, about the possibility of losing Celeste, about spending the rest of my life fighting legal battles alone. Then, I thought about Cesar's steady presence over the past weeks, his gentle care, the way he made me feel safe and cherished, the way he spoke to my belly and called my daughter his own. Okay, I whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The relief and joy on his face was worth every uncertainty. He pulled me into his arms, carefully, mindful of my belly, and held me like I was something precious. You won't regret this, he promised against my hair. I'll spend every day making sure you don't regret this. We should do it quickly, Maria said, ever practical. Before Lucas can file his custody suit, I'll make the arrangements. A small ceremony, family only, this weekend. This weekend? I pulled back to look at Cesar. That's 3 days away. Is that too soon? His eyes searched mine. I thought about it, then shook my head. No. If we're doing this, let's do it. Before I lose my nerve or Lucas causes more problems. Then this weekend it is. Cesar's smile was radiant. You're going to be my wife, Camila. Finally, officially mine. As Maria began making phone calls, already organizing what she called a simple family wedding, I sat there trying to process what had just happened. In 3 days, I would be Camila Montero. In 6 weeks or less, I would have a daughter. My entire life was transforming at a speed that left me breathless. Cesar sat beside me, his hand covering mine on my belly. Are you scared? He asked quietly. Terrified, I admitted. But also, hopeful. Is that strange? It's perfect. He pressed a kiss to my temple. We're going to be a family, Mina querida. You, me, and Celeste. And I promise you'll never be alone again. As his arms came around me and I felt safe despite all the chaos, I allowed myself to believe him. Maybe this was insane. Maybe we were rushing. But maybe, just maybe, this was exactly what was supposed to happen. Maybe I'd been alone for so long because I was waiting for him. I love you, I whispered, the words escaping before I could stop them. Cesar went very still. Say that again. I love you, I repeated louder this time. I don't know when it happened, but I do. I love you, Cesar Montero. The kiss he gave me was gentle and fierce all at once, a claiming and a promise. And as Maria's voice carried from the other room, already commanding caterers and florists and musicians, I realized my life would never be quiet or simple again, but it would be full and loved. And that was worth everything. The morning of my wedding, I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows of Cesar's guest room and the sound of voices downstairs. For a moment, I forgot where I was, forgot what day it was. Then reality crashed back, and my heart began to race. In 4 hours, I would be married to Cesar Montero. A knock at the door made me sit up carefully, mindful of my enormous belly. "Come in." The door opened to reveal not just Maria, but all three of Cesar's sisters, Lucia, Sofia, and Isabella, carrying what looked like enough coffee and pastries to feed an army. "Good morning, bride," Lucia said warmly, setting her burden on the dresser. "We thought you might need reinforcements." "And company," Sofia added, settling into the chair by the window. "No bride should prepare alone." "Even if the wedding is happening rather quickly," Isabella said with a knowing smile. She was the sister I'd met least, having been traveling during my hospital scare, but her welcome now seemed genuine. Maria supervised as they arranged the food, then turned to me. "How are you feeling, dear? Any contractions?" "Just the usual Braxton Hicks," I assured her. Dr. Miranda had cleared me for the wedding, as long as I remained seated for most of it, and didn't overexert myself. "I'm okay, just nervous." "About marrying Cesar?" Lucia asked gently. "Or about everything else?" "Both," I admitted. This time last week, I was living alone in a tiny apartment, convinced I'd be raising my daughter by myself. Now I'm about to marry a man I've known, really known, for less than a month. It's overwhelming. "Do you love him?" Sofia asked directly. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I do, but—" "Then that's enough," Maria interrupted. "Camila, let me tell you about my marriage to Cesar's father. Our families arranged it when I was 19. I'd met Domingo exactly twice before our wedding day. I was terrified." She sat on the edge of my bed, her expression softening with memory. "But do you know what I discovered? Love isn't just a feeling you start with. It's something you build together, day by day, choice by choice. Domingo and I grew to love each other deeply over 40 years of marriage. You and Cesar, you're starting ahead of where we did. You already care for each other. The rest will come. What if I'm not enough for him?" The fear I'd been suppressing spilled out. What if he realizes he's married to someone who brings nothing to this relationship except problems? "You bring everything," Isabella said firmly. "Cesar has money, power, respect. But he's been empty, Camilla. We've watched him become harder, colder, more isolated over the years. Then you came along, and suddenly he's smiling again. He's present. He's happy. That's not nothing." "She's right," Lucia agreed. "My brother is a different man with you. Better. Softer. More human." Their words wrapped around my heart like a warm embrace. These women, Cesar's family, soon to be my family, were accepting me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "Thank you," I whispered, tears threatening. "All of you." "No tears," Maria commanded, but gently. "We have a wedding to prepare for, and you need to look beautiful. Now, let's get you ready." The next 3 hours were a whirlwind. They helped me shower and dress in the simple ivory dress Maria had somehow found in my size. Elegant, with lace sleeves and a draped bodice that accommodated my belly while making me feel beautiful. Sofia did my hair, weaving small flowers into the loose curls. Isabella handled makeup with the skill of someone who understood how to enhance without overwhelming. When they finally let me look in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like a bride, like someone worthy of standing beside Cesar Montero. "He's going to lose his mind," Lucia said with satisfaction. The wedding was being held in the garden of Maria's estate, the same house where I'd collapsed just days ago. But now, as Rosa helped me down the stairs and outside, it had been transformed. White flowers everywhere, chairs arranged in neat rows for the 50 or so family members gathered, and at the end of a rose-petal-strewn path, standing beneath an arch woven with more flowers, was Cesar. He wore a black suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, his dark hair perfectly styled, his expression composed. But as I appeared at the start of the path, supported by Maria on one side and Rosa on the other, his composure shattered. His eyes widened, his breath visibly caught, and the look of pure love and wonder on his face made me cry, despite all the warnings about makeup. "You're beautiful," he mouthed as I approached. The ceremony itself was brief. Father Miguel, the family priest, speaking in Portuguese and English about love and commitment and the blessing of family. I barely heard the words, too focused on Cesar's hands holding mine, his eyes never leaving my face, the way his thumb stroked across my knuckles in that now familiar gesture of comfort and possession. "Do you, Camila Maria Suarez, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Father Miguel asked. "I do," I said, my voice strong despite my tears. "And do you, Cesar Domingo Montero, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Cesar said, his voice rough with emotion. "Absolutely I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Cesar's kiss was gentle, reverent, a promise sealed before God and family. When we pulled apart, I was officially Camila Montero, and the family erupted in applause. The celebration that followed was everything I'd never had. Warmth, laughter, family surrounding us with love and acceptance. Even Roberto approached, offering a genuine apology and a warm hug. "Welcome to the family, sister," he said, and I knew he meant it. But as the sun began to set and guests mingled over dinner, a commotion at the gate drew everyone's attention. Through the gathering dusk, I could see security stopping someone, raised voices carrying across the garden. "That's Lucas," I said, my happiness evaporating. "He's trying to get in." Cesar's expression went cold. "Stay here." He kissed my forehead. "I'll handle this." But Maria stood as well. "No, son. We'll handle this. As a family." What followed was something I'd never forget. The entire Montero family, all 50 people, moved as one toward the gate where Lucas stood arguing with security. I followed, supported by Sofia and Lucia, unwilling to hide while others fought my battle. "You can't keep me from her," Lucas was shouting. "I have rights. That's my baby she's carrying." "That's where you're wrong," Cesar said, his voice deadly calm as he reached the gate. "That baby is mine. Camila is mine. She's my wife now, legally and in every way that matters. And if you come near my family again, you'll discover exactly what happens to people who threaten what belongs to the Montero family." "You can't intimidate me," Lucas said, but I heard the uncertainty in his voice. "I'll take you to court. You'll do nothing," Maria interrupted. "Because my son isn't the only one with resources, young man. The Montero family has lawyers who would be delighted to bury you in legal proceedings for the next decade. We have connections that would ensure you'd never work in this city again. And we have a very long memory for people who cause problems for our family." She stepped closer to the gate, her small frame somehow intimidating despite her size. "But more than that, we have love for that young woman and the child she carries. They are ours now, and we protect our own with everything we have. So I suggest you leave, now, and never come back." The family stood behind her, a united front, and I felt something break open in my chest. This was what family meant. Not blood, but choice. Not obligation, but fierce, protective love. Lucas looked at all of us, then at me. "Camila, you're really choosing this. These people?" "I'm choosing love," I said firmly, Cesar's arm coming around my waist. "I'm choosing safety. I'm choosing a real family for my daughter. Something you never offered us." He stared for another moment, then turned and walked away. I watched until his car disappeared, then sagged against Cesar in relief. "It's over," he murmured. "He's gone. You're safe." "We're safe," I corrected, my hand on my belly where Celeste was kicking vigorously, as if celebrating our victory. 6 weeks later, at 3 in the morning on February 8th, my water broke. Cesar drove me to the hospital with one hand on the wheel and one gripping mine, talking steadily to keep me calm through the contractions. The family arrived within an hour. Maria, all 3 sisters, even the brothers and their wives, filling the waiting room with love and support. But it was Cesar who never left my side. Cesar who held my hand through every contraction, who whispered encouragement in Portuguese and English, who cried when Celeste finally entered the world with a furious wail at 6:47 a.m. "She's perfect," he breathed as the nurse placed her in my arms. "Absolutely perfect." "Would you like to hold your daughter?" I asked, and his eyes filled with tears. "My daughter," he repeated reverently. "Yes, please." Watching him hold Celeste for the first time, seeing the absolute love and wonder on his face, I knew I'd made the right choice. This man who'd claimed us both with such certainty was exactly the father my daughter needed. The family poured in once we were settled, everyone wanting to meet the newest Montero. Maria held Celeste with practiced ease, tears streaming down her face. "Welcome, pequeña," she whispered. "Welcome to our family." 3 months later, we stood in a courthouse as Cesar formally adopted Celeste, giving her his name legally as well as in his heart. The judge, who'd reviewed Lucas's abandoned custody filing with obvious disgust, approved the adoption without hesitation. "Celeste Maria Montero," Cesar said afterward, holding our daughter while I stood beside him, his wedding ring solid on my finger. "Our daughter." "Our family," I corrected, looking at the Monteros gathered around us, at the life we'd built from impossible beginnings. That night, as I nursed Celeste in the nursery we'd prepared in our home, because we'd moved to a house, one with space for our growing family, Cesar came to sit beside us. "Happy?" he asked softly. "Deliriously," I admitted. "Though if you'd told me a year ago that I'd be married to my boss and raising our daughter together, I would have thought you were insane." "The best things in life are a little insane," he said, pressing a kiss to my hair. "Thank you, minha querida, for trusting me, for loving me, for giving me this family." "Thank you," I countered, "for seeing me when I felt invisible, for claiming us when we had no one, for showing me that family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses to stay." As Celeste finished nursing and drifted to sleep in my arms, Cesar wrapped us both in his embrace. And I realized that the woman who'd been terrified to spend New Year's Eve alone had found something infinitely better than she'd ever imagined. I'd found home, I'd found love, I'd found family, and I would never be alone again.